What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today, episode 94, we're going to be previewing the weekend's action. You got the return of Boots Ennis, the return of Dave Allen, the return of Charles Oliveira, all in pretty good fights. So let's just jump right into it and talk about that. We're going to talk about some other news we've had going on in the boxing world. Some really interesting stuff to talk about. Some undercards, some Eddie Hearn getting into MMA maybe. Pitbull vs. Roach was officially announced, so let's just jump into it with first. Jaron Boots Ennis makes his debut in boxing's hottest weight class, 154 pounds. He's officially moving up to a super welterweight, fighting Uisma Lima. Now, I don't want to discredit Lima at all because I feel like that's been done enough. I mean, I've never seen him fight before, but he's 14-1, 10 knockouts. I think that he's the IBO champion. You know, he's come off some pretty decent wins. His last three wins were all 12 rounders, in which he beat all undefeated fighters. His only loss comes to one Aaron McKenna, who, as we know, just beat Liam Smith and is on a really good run in the middleweight division. So, I mean, he looks like he's going to be a pretty decent fighter. This is a guy who, before he fought Boots, I'd seen some people on Twitter talk about, he's kind of this, one of those fighters that's underappreciated. Nobody really knows him. So I think he'll give a really good fight in there, and I think that he's going to do a lot better than most people are expecting. However, I do not think that he beats Boots. I really think that Boots is very, very good. I think that he will be pound for pound top 10 soon enough, probably in the next few years, in the next 2 to 3 years. I think that he's going to be on that top 10 list. But, I mean, hey, we're finally going to get to see him in big fights, finally. Because, Stanionis was good, but before that, never really seen him in that big of a fight. And Lima, I get it. He's trying to wet his feet. To be honest, I don't think that he really needs to take a warm-up fight at 154. He's in his prime. He's on a great run right now. I don't think there's any reason to, let's try it out. New division, dip my toes. No, let's just jump right in, dude. Let's do this. This is for the WBA interim title, so he wins this. He will be mandatory for Abbas Baru. I would love to see that fight happen next. One that I think that maybe more likely than that, and one I would love to see even more, is Virgil Ortiz Jr. We know that Matchroom and Golden Boy have something of a deal, verbal agreement, or agreement that has not yet been signed by both parties for this fight to take place early next year. They both have tough tests ahead of them. Virgil Ortiz, of course, is going to fight Erickson Lubin on November 1st. November 8th, excuse me. If they can both get through these tough fights, we could be in for a really, really good fight between two American super welterweights, which I think that these are the two best guys in the division. I know you have Sebastian Fundora. I know you have Bakram Murtazaliev, Xander Zayas. You got a lot of great fighters, but I think that Ortiz and Ennis are the two best 154-pounders in the world right now. I would love to see them fight next. If it's on a Saudi card, a Matchroom card, a Golden Boy card, I don't care. I need to see it happen, and yeah, that's just such a great fight. So I'm predicting that Boots gets this win, possibly by stoppage. I don't want to say 100% he will. I'm probably leaning towards that in the later rounds, but we're just going to have to see how much of an account Lima will give himself and how much challenge he'll give to the great Boots Ennis. But after this, only big fights from here. Hopefully. They've been saying that for a while, but I really do want to believe it because in 147, there was no great dancing partners for him. Not really. The best one was Stanionis, who didn't have much of a star profile. 154, you're swimming with killers and killers only. So he's going to be in a good fight next, I guarantee it. Also on that card, Alexis Barriere steps up. He's going to challenge Guido Vianello. Look, I'm just saying, I'm not too familiar with Barriere's game. I know that he's an undefeated heavyweight, pretty good. Guido Vianello is not the kind of guy who is often, they always put him in the gatekeeper position, and he doesn't lose that much. I mean, I thought that he got kind of screwed over with the F.A. Ajagba fight. I thought that he won that fight, maybe a draw, but I did not think that he lost. You look at Arslanbek Makhmudov, he stopped him. That was an upset. And sure, Richard Torres Jr. did dominate him. That's fair. But outside of that, and I think Torres is a really good heavyweight hope. I do not think that Barriere is going to be as good as Torres is going to be. So I'm actually going to pick Vianello in this fight. I may be wrong, but I really do like the guy. I think that he's a great fighter, and I think that he's always a tough out against anyone in the heavyweight division. He's a really good gatekeeper because it's very hard to beat him. So I'm going to pick Vianello to pull off the upset in this one, if he even is the underdog. Tamir Smalls is stepping up to 10 rounds. He's fighting Jose Roman Vasquez, who's the same guy who beat Jalil Hackett last year. Um, we'll just see how that one goes. Again, Tamir Smalls, from what I've seen of him, he's pretty good, but this guy's Roman is he's very tricky, I guess you could say. I mean, obviously he was able to beat Jill Hackett. I don't think that I agree with that scorecard, and I think that most would agree that Jill Hackett probably should have gotten the nod there, but it is what it is. So that should be a really, really good fight. Giorgio Vizioli makes his U.S. debut. The return of Zaquin Moses. Dennis Thompson fighting Sean Diaz, two undefeated fighters in a 122-pound 6-round fight. That's great. It's going to be a fun night, dude. I'm really excited. Their Philly cards are always pretty good. And Boots on top. Yeah, I'm excited for that one. Now, most interestingly, that's not the only Matchroom card of the weekend. That's the second one. We got another one just a few hours before in the UK. Dave Allen returns against Arslanbek Makhmudov, who we just mentioned. Dave Allen is 24-7-2. Makhmudov is 20-2. It's gonna be a 12-rounder, which I was a little bit surprised to see that. It's 12 and not 10, and it doesn't matter because there's no way this is going past like 6, maybe 7 rounds. It's gonna be. I don't really know. This is a really good heavyweight fight, actually. Even though neither of these guys are gonna be competing for Usyk or anything. Like, this is a C-tier heavyweight fight, but it's a really evenly matched one. And I can see it going a lot of ways. And I've thought about it a lot, and I think that my pick is actually going to be Makhmudov. I think he's going to pull off the upset here. Again, even if he is the underdog, I think that Dave Allen may be the better boxer. I think that he's in the best shape and the best mindset and the best run of his career potentially. But dude, when you look at the size difference, Makhmudov is a monster. And sure, Makhmudov is slow, and he doesn't have a good gas tank, and he's not the best boxer, but he has world-ending power. He's one of those guys. He's like Deontay Wilder, or even Moses Atama, even though Moses Atama is still an extraordinary boxer. He can just turn your lights out with one punch. He's like Fabio Wardley as well. It doesn't matter if you're losing the fight. He has that equalizer. And when I look at Dave Allen, a guy who's been stopped multiple times in his career and has been around the block, he's had a long career, and is not, he's not Ajit Kabayel, and he's not even Guido Vianello. When you look at the jump from fighting Johnny Fisher to fighting Arslanbek Makhmudov, again, Makhmudov's not that good, but he's a lot better than Johnny Fisher is right now. I think this is a really big jump up, and if Dave Allen beats him, I'll be seriously impressed. I just feel like right now, Matchroom in the UK, maybe putting more stock into Dave Allen being really good in his last 2 fights as opposed to who he was fighting, and that Johnny Fisher was not at that level yet. I don't know if it was Dave Allen so good he beat Johnny Fisher or Johnny Fisher wasn't ready enough to beat Dave Allen. That's what I'm thinking right now. So we're just going to have to see which way this one goes, but I'm going to pick Makhmudov. I think it's going to be a great fight either way. I'm happy. And it should be going. And look, they say that if Dave Allen gets through Makhmudov, they want to put him in with Kubrat Pulev. They want to put him in with Deontay Wilder. I mean, these are names that would actually be potentially competitive fights just because these guys are washed. But it's just crazy to think that Dave Allen could be fighting Deontay Wilder. Like, who would have... 3 years ago, people would have laughed at you for saying that. Even when you think about Dave Allen fighting Kubrat Pulev, who is technically the WBA regular heavyweight champion, it's ridiculous. But it could happen. Also on that card, you've got Josh Padley, Reese Bellotti. Really, really interesting fight. I'm not even sure who to pick on that one. I think it's a straight pick 'em. Josh Padley is good, but we don't know how good yet because he did beat Mark Chamberlain. Obviously wasn't good enough to beat Shakur Stevenson, but he was completely unknown before that Wembley fight. So we're still figuring out, okay, how good are you really? He seems quite good, but Reese Bellotti is a really tough guy to beat. I mean, he was beating everyone in the UK before the Ryan Garner fight, but Ryan Garner is now at world level pretty much. So I don't know who to pick in that one. I think it's a great fight. Junaid Boston rematching Bilal Fawaz, hoping for another great fight. They obviously drew last time out. I'm going to pick Boston, but I think it's going to be really close again, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one goes either ways. Hamza Udin steps up to 10 rounds, fighting Paul Roberts, who's 7-6-2. I think he should be able to win that. You got Ibrahim Suleiman, Connor Tudsbury, Joe Howarth, and Joe Hayden all on the undercard. So another run out of good prospects. I'm hoping it's a good night. And yeah, I'm really, really interested in that heavyweight main event just because I think it's a really well-matched fight. Let's jump over to Rio, Brazil, where the UFC is returning with Charles de Bronx Oliveira. Actually, no longer de Bronx. He's changed his nickname to Predador, which I actually kind of really like. I think that's a pretty tough nickname. He's going to be fighting Mateusz Gamrot. Obviously, Oliveira was meant to fight Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev got injured or sick or something, had to pull out, so they bring in Gamrot, who I think is a great replacement. This is number 4 versus number 8 in the lightweight division. Really good fight. Uh, and look, I think that this is one that Oliveira, he could lose. I think that Gamrot really could come in here and just try to wrestle his head off and just kind of lay on top of him. I don't know. I don't know how this one goes, but I'm going to pick Oliveira because I think he's going to have the crowd behind him. I think that he still is a top 5 lightweight. I think that he wants to set everything straight off of that Ilia Topuria defeat and let everyone know that was not the usual me. Getting first round knocked, starch out, like that was a rough watch. So I think that Charles Oliveira really wants to set the record straight. And look, if he doesn't win this fight, it's the beginning of the question. He's already not in his prime anymore. That's clear, and that's okay. But it's a question of, okay, how far down have you slipped? Are you still a top contender? I think he still is right now. But if he loses to Gamrot, maybe this is Gamrot's crowning moment. But I'm going to pick Oliveira to win this one. Cannot wait for that fight. And another big implications for the stacked lightweight division. Co-main event, Davison Figueiredo returns off of his loss to Corey Sandhagen. He's going to be fighting Montel Jackson, number 15. I'm thinking Figgy can get the win there, but that should be a tough fight. Both ranked guys. Figgy coming off a couple losses. I'm looking forward to that. Vicente Luque versus Joel Alvarez should be a banger. Jonata Diniz versus Mario Pinto. Lots of good Brazilians on this card. April I am really looking forward to his Walter Walker, ranked number 15 in the heavyweight division. He's going to be fighting Muhammad Usman, the brother of Kamaru Usman, of course. Great fight. That should be a lot of chaos. I like them throwing. I feel like every UFC fight night has a random ranked heavyweight fight. And I know that Usman's not ranked, but Walker is. This will have some kind of impact on the rankings. They always have a random heavyweight fight on the prelims, and sometimes they're stinkers, but sometimes they're bangers. And this one very well could be a stinker, but I think it's an interesting matchup. And look, dude, Usman could be really close to getting into those rankings if he can pull off an upset here. But yeah, I'm excited for UFC Rio. It should be fun. I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so I won't be able to watch the fights live. But as soon as I do, I will. You'll hear from me on the next episode. Probably coming out Monday is what I'm aiming for. But yeah, man, really good weekend of fights coming up, and it's going to be awesome. Now let's talk about some other stuff. And I actually want to do something a little bit different. We'll talk about the new movie that just came out, The Smashing Machine. It's obviously somewhat combat sports related. It's focused on Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman's in there in their days in the Pride FC, and it's just a lot of an insight into Mark Kerr's life. And I know this isn't a movie podcast. I'm a pretty big movie guy, but I thought that it was a great movie. I thought it was just really interesting to see into somebody's life because the movie's not about his fighting. It's not about his fighting. It's about him. It's about his story with his partner, his story with his drug use, his story with always wanting to win and not being able to lose, not just in the fight but in life. And I thought that Dwayne Johnson did a great job. Obviously, he's trying to switch it up and become more of a legit, serious actor, and I thought he did great. The size of him is just unbelievable. Mark Kerr was a huge guy. Or is, back in his heyday when he was fighting, he's just massive. And yeah, I think that they did great. It sucks to see that it kind of flopped at the box office. I hope it gets more recognition. And I thought the UFC did a great job in helping promote this fight. But yeah, it was a really good movie. If you guys want to go check it out, I definitely recommend it. Usyk is in it. I thought that Usyk was pretty fun in the role he had. Ryan Bader, randomly enough, plays Mark Coleman, is in a huge part of the movie and does a great job. Where, the people I saw it with, they didn't even know that they just assumed he was a normal actor. And I don't know if Ryan Bader's acted in the past, but I just thought it was so interesting they cast someone who's not even like a superstar, Usyk is one of the most famous boxers in the world. Ryan Bader is not that. He's not one of the best MMA fighters. He's not one of the most famous MMA fighters. He's like a B-tier fighter. And I just thought it was interesting that he played Mark Coleman, and he did such a good job and felt so authentic and real in the role. So, good job to everyone, to Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt. They were all great, and it's a really great movie. But let's get into some news. Pitbull, Cruz, Lamont Roach officially announced for December 6th in Texas. No undercard. And this is for the WBC Interim Super Lightweight Championship. It's going to be on pay-per-view. So you're headlining an interim card on a pay-per-view with no fights before it announced yet. I know that what's likely here is that they are trying to get Janibek versus Lara as the co-main event there, and it's just a little bit harder for them to get that over the line, so they're waiting until they have that fight announced. But I really want to find out who else is on this card, because this is a fight where you're going to need a great undercard, because even though the fight itself is great, it's a 50-50. You have a lightweight fighting a junior lightweight at super lightweight. Doesn't make any sense. But, Pitbull is by now a super lightweight. He's fought there long enough. But Lamont Roach is coming up from one fight at 135. Before that, he'd been a career 130 pounder. So it's really odd to me. But I don't know. It's a great fight, but it's not pay-per-view worthy, so you're going to need a great undercard. Magomed Ankalaev says that he is injured. He was injured with a broken rib, and this injury happened 20 days earlier to the fight. Now, this would explain why he was so useless in the cage and didn't do anything to try and stop Pereira, and just kind of folded like a t-shirt you're folding in laundry, just fell apart. But this would explain why that happened. However, nobody's ever 100% going into a fight. They're just not. Everybody that goes into these fights, they're never going to be on their A game. There's always going to be something wrong, some little niggle, something wrong with their camp, and it's just, you're just never going to be ready. So, not fully, not 100%. So I don't really take this as, Pereira beat Ankalaev, but he had a broken rib. No, broken rib is not as serious of an injury, relatively speaking. This doesn't really have anything changes for the fight. So Conor McGregor was suspended for 18 months. He's ineligible to fight for 18 months from, I think it was September 2024 to March 2026. This is from him missing his mandatory testing with the UFC anti-doping agency. This is so weird because he's already served 13 of the 18 months of the suspension before it got assigned. And, of course, he's still going to be ready to fight by the time the White House card comes around, because that's in June 2026. His suspension ends in March. This doesn't mean anything. It just means that he wasn't testing like he said he was. I'm in the testing pool when he wasn't. But this just means that he hasn't really been testing because he doesn't have a fight. He hasn't fought in coming up on 5 years. There's no reason why we should be like, oh, he's suspended. It doesn't matter. He's not actively fighting at all. So, whatever. He'll still be able to find the White House. I just think this is so stupid. The whole suspension doesn't mean anything. Something interesting, Manny Pacquiao says that he is back January 24th in Las Vegas. He's announced it. PBC has not announced it yet because we don't know the opponent. It's looking like they're trying to get the Rolly Romero fight. They don't want to do Mario Barrios because even though that was a draw, we all saw Pacquiao still probably better than Barrios and maybe would beat him in the rematch. So not really interested in that. Let's try somebody a little bit better. New challenge, Rolly Romero. Give it to me. It's a bigger fight, I think. I think Rolly's a bigger name than Mario Barrios. And I'm totally down for it. And I love that we're going to get it so early in the year. It seems like usually we have December ends strong, but then we don't have anything for weeks. I don't think there's going to be any gap over the new year. I think the fights are going to happen every week. And then you're still going to have so many big fights happening in January. I'm super excited for the new year of boxing and MMA. Everything is going to be great. But, yeah, I'm excited to see this fight. Speaking of Mario Barrios, Ryan Garcia says that he wants to fight Barrios next. I have no problem with that. I think that that's honestly a pretty even fight. I would favor Ryan over Mario Barrios to finally win a world title if he can stay disciplined enough to get that fight and to get that win. I don't see why not. Mario Barrios isn't really doing anything else. He wants to fight guys like Conor Benn. Ryan Garcia would fall into that, kind of not incredible fighter, but good. And Mario Barrios couldn't beat Manny Pacquiao at 47. I think Ryan Garcia hopefully will be able to beat him, and I have no problem with them making that fight next if it comes to pass. What else? Fedora Thurman prelims. So, yeah, this was announced. We now know that the prelims on this October 25th card are going to be headlined by Frank Martin. I don't know why the Frank Martin fight is not on the main card. He's fighting Rances Barthélemy, who went the distance with Jose Ramirez last year. I don't know why this isn't just the opening fight of the main card. Instead, they have the Isaac Lucero fight. I'd rather have this, but hey, you know what? It's good. It's a good fight. Excited to see Frank Martin back in the ring finally. You've got Kaipo Gallegos stepping up to 10 rounds. He's fighting Nike Thuran, and then Luis Nunes versus Hector Sosa. So some good fights, dude. Really excited for this PBC card. All the PBC cards this year have just been great. You get 4 awesome fights on the main card and then 2 or 3 great prelims that are still main card-worthy fights on non-pay-per-views. So I'm excited for this upcoming one on October 25th. Should get some good fights, and yeah. Eddie Hearn was on the Ariel Helwani show, obviously talking about Dana White's entrance into boxing and how, it'd be the same thing as Eddie going into MMA and saying, I'm going to be the king of MMA, saying that would kind of ruffle your feathers. And Ariel asked him, like, well, are you going to get into MMA? And he's not hesitant. He's kind of hesitant to say no. He says, it's not really my thing, but I do think I could be decent in it, and I would come in and I would, do all these things differently, and I think that the way that I promote boxing, I'd be able to promote MMA pretty well. So I think that with Matchroom's new investment from Riyadh season, from their Matchroom Sport wanting to expand that, I would not be surprised if Matchroom does eventually try to do MMA. I have no interest in seeing Matchroom do MMA. I don't think it's needed, but I'm just saying, I think that's a really interesting little tidbit of information there that Eddie Hearn doesn't seem totally disinterested in the idea of jumping into MMA and doing that in addition to boxing. I think that would be very, very interesting to see. And I think it'd be really funny to see that rivalry, go the other way, where now Eddie goes into Dana sport. But I'm really excited to see Dana White's entrance into boxing, and I think that Dana White will be more successful in boxing than Eddie would be in MMA. However, European MMA does not have, a UFC really, because UFC is not as much of a presence there. So if Matchroom could commit to being the place for European MMA, I don't know. But this is all just hypotheticals. It's not going to happen. I don't know. It's just interesting. Carl Froch teases The Last Dance. His last dance was 10, 11 years ago. But it is interesting he's putting the gloves back on. He's talked about coming back for a while, wanted to do a Jake Paul fight, wanted to do an exhibition fight against another retired boxer. Now all the interest seems to be on Darren Till. He had a little bit of back and forth. He was at Darren Till's last fight. I would not be surprised. I mean, I would be kind of surprised if they were able to get Carl Froch and to pay him enough money to fight Darren Till. But, dude, if Misfits' last pay-per-view of the year gets announced and it's Darren Till versus Carl Froch at like a big arena or even a stadium, oh, man, that would be wild. That would be wild, and I would love to see it. So, I don't know. I don't think anything's signed as of yet. I think he's just putting the gloves back on and saying, I'm ready. I want to come back. I want to do a little last dance. But, dude, Carl Froch, Darren Till would be crazy. It would be awesome. What else? Harlem Eubank. His return has been confirmed for Brighton. He's going to fight Josh Wagner on November 21st. I'm not too familiar with Wagner, if I'm being honest. They call him like the Wild Man or something like that. I don't really know what to expect from this fight. Obviously, Harlem Eubank has had a pretty active year. Great win over Tyrone McKenna. And then not a great loss to Jack Catterall. Just didn't look overly good in that fight. Both of them were very boring. Looking at Wagner, his only loss came to David Papot last year. I'm guessing that was an IBF eliminator. It was a 12-rounder. So, hey, maybe this is a pretty decent opponent if he's only lost to one guy who just fought another eliminator. Maybe he's half decent. But we're just going to have to see. I'm expecting Harlem Eubank to win this fight. And I want to see him get into some other big fights because he can do some good stuff in the UK against some other opponents. I don't think he's ever going to be a world champion, but I think there's a lot of great domestic fights out there for him. Also on that card, you got Neil Brown stepping up. He's going to be fighting Darren Johnstone over 10 rounds. That's a pretty good step up for their prospect. Johnstone's only loss comes to Mark Jeffers by KO last year. So, but Mark Jeffers is not on the greatest run either right now. Matty Harris versus Franklin Ignatius is like a 50-50 8-round heavyweight fight. So Wasserman's put together a pretty decent 3-fight card. I'm sure they'll have more fights added. Maybe Dan Toward will be back in action. But, looking forward to November 21st in Brighton. Speaking of good cards, Taken, the Japanese promotion, done it again. Well, we hadn't heard yet what the undercard for Tenshin Nasukawa versus Takuma Inoue was going to be on November 24th. We now know it's going to be Mikito Nakano versus Rais Alim in an IBF featherweight final eliminator. So winner of this will be mandatory for Angelo Leo's featherweight title, who, by the way, needs to be way more active. We haven't heard anything about him since his last fight earlier this year in Japan. But I think it's a good fight. Both these guys actually fought on the Inoue Cardenas undercard in May. So it's interesting. They were like one fight apart on the card, and now they're going to be fighting each other. I would definitely favor Nakano in this one, but who knows? Tomoya Tsuboi, who I think has only had like 2 pro fights, is going to be fighting Carlos Cuadras, who's, been around the block, had a lot of great fights, and that's a really big step up, and I expect he'll win that. But they're moving him extremely fast. He'll be in a world title fight very soon. If he's fighting Carlos Cuadras in his third fight. And then Riku Masuda is back as well. He's going to be fighting Jose Miguel Calderon Cervantes, in what should be a pretty good performance from him. So, yeah, another great 4-fight card from Japan. The Japanese cards are so stacked. Obviously, you only have one world title fight on this. Another eliminator and some guys who are close to getting a world title shot. But, yeah, looking forward to November 24th in Japan. Bakodir Jalala fought this weekend, too. Forgot to mention that on the last episode. Didn't really hear anything good about it, if I'm being honest. I heard it was another unimpressive unanimous decision win. This guy is so weird because he was a knockout monster. Now his last 2 fights are against nobody in, Eastern Europe, and he's going the distance. And it's just he could genuinely be in world contender fights now at heavyweight, and he's just completely stalled. He's not doing anything with his career, and it's just really disappointing. It's really disappointing because I wanted to see him, be somebody big, and he still can, but he's getting up there. Not getting up there, but he's aging, and he's not going to be in his prime forever, and he's fighting cans and not even looking good against them. So just disappointing. We also had another instance this weekend, and Angel Fierro was disqualified from his boxing match for kicking his opponent. And I saw the video, and it's just ridiculous. He should get suspended or even banned. He's definitely not getting that rematch with Isaac Pitbull Cruz anymore. Obviously, he blew that one by missing weight during the week of the fight. And then he goes to Mexico, I think is where the fight was, and does this. Not a good look at all. And, yeah, just really, really odd and disappointing to see. So we've been waiting to hear what the Clark versus TKV undercard was looking like. It's now been announced. Co-main event on BBC with them is going to be Fran Hennessy versus Fabiana Bitiki. Bitiki is a former world champion. This is Hennessy's first 10-rounder, so a good step up for her. But, this being the co-main event, this lets you know the kind of budget that these BBC shows are on Boxer, because Clark versus TKV for the British title is not bad. It's not bad as a main event. But when this is the co-main and the undercard, actually some well-matched fights. I think Bobby Dalton versus Joel Kodua for the English Championship. Both undefeated fighters. That should be good. Mauro Silva stepping up. He's going to be fighting Bradley Goldsmith, who just had his first loss, and I think it was also an English title fight or an area title fight. I don't know. That's a good matchup. And then Jack Massey's back on this card. We don't know what the rounds are. Probably only 6 or 8. He's going to be fighting Ivan Gabriel Garcia, who actually just fought Leonardo Mosquera in a 10-rounder and got stopped in that fight. So, I don't know. I'm not expecting much from that fight, but this is an okay card, and it lets you know, they do not have a very big budget, and this is why guys like Ben Whitaker, Vidal Riley, Joshua Buatsi have left. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see people like Adam Azim and Chris Bilm-Smith trying to leave as well. Chris Bilm-Smith, his ordered fight with Roman Fres for the WBO interim cruiserweight belt today. No bitter. I don't know if Fres has a promoter, but CBS's promoter, Boxer, didn't bid anything because they probably don't have the money to right now. And it's honestly, it sucks to see. And this is great to have the sport on BBC in the UK, but there's no budget behind the shows, and they're trying to get Reality Season behind them as a sponsor, but it doesn't look like that's going to come into effect for this show because it's not a lot of action on the undercard. So, I don't know. Not the biggest fights happening, and a little bit disappointing of a co-main event, but hopefully they can still deliver a fun night of fights. An interesting fight has been added to the October 25th Parker Worley undercard. Still no word on if Denzel Bentley versus Andrew Saavedra is actually happening on that. I think it's no longer on the card, which sucks because that was the best fight on the undercard. It was going to be a WBO middleweight final eliminator. I was really looking forward to that. Hopefully it can still happen, but just doesn't look like it's going to happen on October 25th. But Georgian Eldadaj versus Rolly Lambert-Fogum has been added for the IBO Cruiserweight World Championship. So the IBO titles are a little bit back in action now. Haven't seen an IBO World title fight in a minute, but here we are. And Eldadaj returning. He fought on a Queensberry card earlier this year. He's going to be fighting Rolly Lambert-Fogum, who's a pretty decent fighter. I kind of like this fight. Why not? Throw it on there. Probably on the pay-per-view, I guess. It's not a pay-per-view undercard worthy fight at all, but, winner of this fight, being on pay-per-view, having an IBO title at Cruiserweight, it'll add somebody new to the Cruiserweight division. And they'll give them a profile, and we'll have more players because we really need more players at Cruiserweight. Because when you look at we'll just talk about it now. Our last bit of notes here. The undercard for Lanier Perra versus Jordan Thompson, which is still a really interesting fight, has been announced, and we're going to be seeing Pat Brown move up and fight, or not move up, but step up, I guess, and fight Felix Valera. I mean, Valera just gave Tristan Kalkruth a pretty tough 10 rounds earlier this year, and I have no doubt that he loses to Pat Brown. I think Pat Brown beats him. But look, Pat Brown, I didn't even see this. This is a 10-round fight. He's already in a 10-rounder in his 5th professional fight. That is crazy that he stepped up this far. And I'm actually really surprised to see that. I thought it was going to be 8 rounds. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that they've already got Pat Brown this high, he's already got some good names on his resume. He's going to be looking for world title fights maybe even next year. That is how desolate the division is. I mean, obviously Pat Brown's great. He was always going to rise pretty fast. But, I mean, there's not a lot of names out here for them to challenge each other. And you need more names. So having a fight between two good cruiserweights on a card like that with a somewhat meaningful title will help spice up the division. Also on this Perra Thompson undercard, you're going to be having Yoelvis Gomez versus Ontravius Ingram. That's a really good fight, actually. Gomez just fought on the MVP card. Ontravius Ingram was signed to MVP. I'm not sure if he still is. He's undefeated. They're going to fight over 10 rounds at 154. That's a really good 50-50 competitive fight. I love that. I'm surprised Ingram is stepping up to fight Gomez, this early in his career, but I'm down for it. And then you got Omari Jones as well, who's stepping up, and he's going to fight Yusuf Metu, who's 12-2. He's probably in the co-main event there because he's such a big star in Orlando. Nishan Dev is back on this card as well. Carlos De Leon as well. So I'm excited for this. The cards at the Career Royale are always great. They're always such good action. And Matchroom is back there with another solid one, and Pat Brown steps up his U.S. debut. So, that's all I've got for today's episode. Like I said, Boots versus Lima this weekend. Allen versus Makhmudov, and Oliveira versus Gamrot. All 3 great cards, great fights. Only 3 events this weekend, but they're all big UFC and 2 Matchroom events. I'm looking forward to a fun weekend of fights. Again, I won't be able to watch them live, so I won't be tweeting during them, but I will get caught up as soon as possible and talk about them here, as well as maybe some on Twitter. But thank you all so much for listening. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the fights, and peace out.